What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Young and Brainless Podcast. Today, it's a very, I want to say, special, intimate kind of episode because it's just me by myself. And there's a reason why I wanted to make it a just me episode, because this really has to do about taking care of yourself, and I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it or any of that. It's just straight to the point. It's exactly what we need to talk about. It's about taking care of yourself. Now, those that maybe listened, because I know I have like a slight audience. Hey, something. But I have an audience, and those people that listened may have noticed that I didn't post any podcast for between that Pokemon episode and the Smooth episode. So the reason for that is because I had to take time off to just focus on myself, And during that time, there was a lot that I had to think about, and it had to do with the podcast. It had to do with music. It had to do with just issues all around, and I did get a few questions. I did get a few questions on Instagram. So we're going to go based off of those as well. But just straight to the point, it's very important that if you guys are going through things, that you guys focus on yourself, take care of yourself, because you never know what can actually help you feel better. And we're going to start by saying, what I did. So late January, early February, or even maybe mid-February, things were just going. They were terrible. I can't even say they were like, oh, they were going kind of bad. They were just going terribly for me. And I realized, I'm like, okay, I really need to take time off for myself completely. So I left Instagram, because that's really the only platform I focus on. Like Snapchat's there, here and there. Twitter, I use it for memes, but that's just, or to keep up like stay up to date with the wrestling and all that. What is it? Facebook I don't really use, but I began using it more when I left Instagram, because that's what I kind of felt like it was like an alternative. And so the reason why Facebook became the alternative is because on Facebook I have much more family on that platform, while Instagram is more friends, a couple of family members, and just it's more of a business move on Instagram. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but that's the way I saw it. And so moving away from Instagram, it was hard because I use Instagram all the time. And especially, when I'm riding my bicycle, because when I ride my bicycle, I usually do post, little videos of me on the bicycle or whatnot. So now I will whip out my phone, about to hop on the Instagram app, and I can't, because I know I'm taking that break. So I did it on Snapchat, and I did it on Snapchat maybe once or twice, and that was it. I haven't, like, to this day, I think I haven't even uploaded anything really about riding my bicycle on my Instagram stories. But and we go back to that Facebook topic, because it when family is really just your main support, that's it ends up just being much more relieving in a way. So when I was on Facebook, I would post random pictures, and that's where I would post pictures of my bicycle and all that, blah blah. And on Facebook, it'd be my family commenting on it. So it wasn't like I was trying to like reach an audience or reach anything special. It was just, hey, let me post this picture, and I know my family's gonna see it. And that's honestly like a nice little feeling. Not that I needed them to see it, but it's just I've been so caught up in social media that I had to like post something that had to do with my bicycle or whatnot, And that was the case for a while on Facebook and Twitter. I was tweeting a lot more, but I was tweeting on my burner account more than I was tweeting on my main account. And on my burner account, I can post jokes here and there, but these jokes that I was posting ended up becoming more real posts, more real statements, you know. And I realized, I'm like, okay, Twitter, like no one really follows me on this account, so it's just me venting, and it was good. It was great to take time off from Instagram. But towards the end of the break, because I only did just March, I did all of March. Yeah, I did all of March. Didn't get on my phone. Didn't get on Instagram. I now people were telling me, why don't you delete the app? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And I was about to delete the app, but I'm like, you know what? If I delete it, I feel like that'd just be way too easy. You know, I can delete it and I can install it back, blah blah. So I realized, I'm like, no, I can't. Let me leave the app, but really push myself to not use it. And there were times where I was really about to break. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hop back on, maybe just scroll through, and I just could not. There was no way that I could do it, because I would be lying to myself. And so, anyways, that time away from Instagram was helpful, because I while I took the time off, I'm like, all right, let's see if I can write music. And I realized that I had to get away from music as well, because although music is like therapeutic for me, it at a point became more of like a job or a chore, or like I was trying to meet a specific deadline that no one was placing for me but myself. And during that during that time period, I'm like, you know what? Let me step away from music as well. Let me not try to write anything. Just breathe. And it was very hard in the beginning to just step away from music in general, because that's all I do. I just write, and I like to record songs, and things like that. So once I had all of these things that had to do with social media and technology, and once I had those things taken away from me by myself, by the way, no one took it away from me. I decided to take it away from me. So I took it away from me, and I began to go out, just go out on my bicycle, go out for a ride, go out for, a drive. I had my motorcycle. I went out for a random ride every now and then. And that was very, very, very therapeutic, because when I ride my bike, and we'll go back to the overall riding motorcycles and bicycles and, just going out. But something that I had to realize before I took the break is that when I ride my bicycle, I like going fast. I like to go fast. I don't like to cruise, down the streets, because I'm like, why am I cruising? This is way too slow for me. I can definitely ride faster. Why am I cruising? And it took a conversation with one of my friends that I know, he was telling me, he was like, yo, the city at night is beautiful. And I'm like, it is, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm going at my own pace. I'm on the bridge, blah, blah. And I'm like, yo, you're right. And I think that's where one of my problems came, when when I had to take care of myself. I was living, I want to say, a little fast, and that just not even in just riding, just overall. So when I ride, I want to get from point A to point B in the fastest way possible. And during this break, I really had to stop and slow down. My bike rides were no longer about speed. They were more about enjoying the journey, enjoying the trip, enjoying all of that, because I was living too fast, I want to say. And during that time, you begin to kind of like understand or admire and appreciate nature for what it is. I would ride to a track a couple miles away from my house, and usually I would want to just get there fast. Like I said before, I just want to do that. But during this time that I went to the track, I just went there, took my time. I didn't rush up the hills. I didn't rush down the hills either. And during during these rides and all that, I would sit down and just stare at. So the track is in the grassy area. I would sit down and stare at the track, and just chill, relax, let the sun hit me. And it was very, very, very relieving to have I want to say, a change of routine. I feel that would be the only way to put it. My routine was changing, and it felt great. So I applied that because I would be on my bicycle a lot. So I applied that to riding the motorcycle, and obviously you can't live as slow on that. But I would just not try getting to my destination fast either. I would like, all right, if there's a car in front of me, I'll stay behind it. I wouldn't lane split. I just chill because I'm like, why am I rushing to this spot? I don't need to rush to anywhere. Like, why am I just? There's no need. There's no need for that. And so that's what happened when it came to writing. Um, and just it's really when you're moving so fast and you crash, it's like a culture shock. You don't know what to do because it's never happened to you. Kind of like COVID was to everybody. COVID was obviously unexpected. It completely stopped anything that was going on, and it changed the way that we lived, and it changed the way that we're living right now. Because it's not the same exact way that we were living back in 2019. Heck, it wasn't the exact same way that we were living in January of 2020. You know, it's been very different ever since COVID started. So you kind of just have to adapt to every situation, and I believe that's exactly what happened here. Not in the same to the same degree, but definitely in a similar matter. And so one of the questions that someone had asked me is, why didn't you leave all the social media platforms during your break? And I said, I feel like that would have been a little more destructive. Now, I understand that people might say, hey, but if you're leaving Instagram, you might as well leave everything else. Yes, but again, and I know it's probably not a good thing, but the fact that social media it plays a big part in my day-to-day life and things like that. If I left everything, I feel like I would be in a bigger culture shock than I was with Instagram. And Instagram was definitely, I did take a toll with it because that's where I promote my music and I put little snippets and all that. Some of that had no snippets coming out. I was writing more, but I always post. I have little highlights on my Instagram that's just bicycle or motorcycle or whatever. So on Instagram, I wasn't doing that anymore, and it was kind of it was hard. So leaving all social media, I feel like would have just completely just like knocked me out in a different way, and I don't think it would have been good for me. It would rather be destructive. My bad. It would be more destructive than beneficial. So I had to take care of myself. I'm like, okay, I can start removing things slowly, and it would eventually, I would come back. I'm back now, and I feel like the way that I came back was just better because I came back and I announced a brand new song. Like, that's not like I didn't even post any pictures like, hey, blah blah, I'm back. No, it's just, welcome, we're here, like we never left. Here's a brand new song, and the song is doing great right now. So that's the way I came back. There's also just the idea of like, if you leave everything, it it wouldn't really work. You can't really leave everything, because you leave everything, you're gonna eventually come back. And if I were to leave all the social medias, it would be a little weird. It would be a little weird for me since I am so used to it. Now, after coming back from the social media break, during that month actually that I was on the break, I had to learn a lot. I had to learn how to be happy by myself, with things that I do, with my mistakes and all that. And my job really definitely helped, because I was working with a different team. I was working. I was no longer revolving. I wasn't revolving my day-to-day life or my day-to-day living with going out with friends, or just doing anything. And friendship issues definitely played a huge role in me leaving social media and everything, just personal issues, right? But being at work all the time kind of like got me out of that routine. So I just it was very helpful to just not have to focus on going out all the time, and work kept me distracted and whatnot, blah blah. And during that time, I had to, where I work, I do work with a lot of people, but you're also like working on your own in a way. You know, people can come to you when they need something, or you can actually help them out. So you just have to get used to being who you are and being by yourself. And when I came back, I applied that to just what I was doing, and I came back and I had I had to get ready to book a flight to Tampa. You know, I did leave for WrestleMania 37. I went all the way to Florida, and I was trying to originally my dad was supposed to come with me, but he had some work problems, and I'm like, okay, cool. And I had tried getting friends to come with me, and none of them could go because it was such a last minute decision. So during this last minute decision, I'm like, okay, cool. Like I have the tickets to the show. I'm not gonna let them go to waste because it's supposed to be a good show, and it honestly was. So I'm like, all right, I have the tickets. We gotta, hey man, you're doing this by yourself. I booked my own, my ticket, my plane ticket, my hotel, my room, all that, and I went solo. I had to go solo, and during that time that I was away, I began to realize I'm like, it's cool having friends and all that, to go out with and travel. But now it's like you're by yourself. You don't have anybody to please you. It's just you. You work at your own pace. And everything that I learned during that break, instead of rushing everything, I would wake up at whatever time I woke up. I would go get something to eat, and I would just enjoy the day. I went for a walk from the hotel to Starbucks, and from Starbucks to a mall, and it was just very, very relieving. And so that goes back to a question that I have, and then people were asking me, they were like, "Did you end up going to WrestleMania by yourself?" And I said, "Yeah." They're like, how did you enjoy your time there? You don't know anyone. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I really don't know anyone. And I think that's what made the entire trip more exciting. I don't know anyone, and I'm here to meet new people and just have solo experiences. And that's exactly what I did. I did meet up with people that I knew from Twitter. People that I knew from Twitter were at WrestleMania. I think I was live tweeting SmackDown in 2018 or even 17, and I got I got very minimal followings, but a very minimal following, but I did get a couple people to comment on my tweets and retweet them, and we began a small community began to grow, and I managed to link up with a couple of these people at uh at WrestleMania, or not at WrestleMania, but in Tampa during the event, and a lot of people were very nice and all that, and I feel like that's something that I wouldn't have been able to do. So the overall experience at WrestleMania was like, yeah, you are by yourself, and I could have easily, I think for WrestleMania they had a policy where you can cancel your event. Yeah, you could get your event ticket refunded or something if you prove that you have COVID, or just things like that. And I wasn't going to do that because I really wanted to go to the show. So during that time, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go anyway. Like, I have these tickets and I'm gonna go, and whatever happens, happens. Of course, I had to move it with, precaution and here and there, because yeah, I am by myself and I gotta know exactly what I'm doing, you know. But it was overall a fun experience, and it was a huge learning experience for me as well, because I've never really traveled on my own. And after the entire, after the sorry, excuse my language, is the shit show that January and February were. And March not wasn't really a shit show, but it was more kind of, I was isolated from everything else. But those first 2 months were terrible, and I kind of had to reward myself, and that's something that people told me. They're like, was WrestleMania a way to treat yourself? And yes, it was, but that wasn't the full intention for WrestleMania. I wanted to go to the show, but the tickets were bought. The tickets were bought already, and it wasn't meant to be a treat to myself. Because even before WrestleMania was announced, I'm like, I'm going to the next one. If they're having fans, I'm going to the next one. And but after what the first 2 months, 2.5 months were, I'm like, you know what? Let WrestleMania be a treat to myself. The fact that I managed to overcome all this, personally, of course, and it wasn't not that it was like life threatening or any of that. It was just personal issues. But the fact that I managed to overcome all this, it felt great to have something there that, like, okay, you've been through all this and now you're here. You know, you managed to reach a point where you can treat yourself. And that's something that I want to tell people, you know. We live in a time where people are just so caught up in their jobs, or caught up in their families, and then they get, you know, family over everything. But they're just so caught up in the stressful things that life brings that they don't really stop and treat themselves. And that's where you just burn out. You know, people I know people that have burned out. And I actually quit one of my jobs earlier in the year because of this. You know, well, I was burned out. I wasn't enjoying it, you know. And yeah, sure, the money was good, but if you're not really enjoying what you're doing, then why are you doing it? You know. And that's something that I believe, I don't even know if it's Gen Z or millennials or whatever it's called, but I'm 23, so I guess I want to say that people from my generation are getting used to just like, okay, yeah, money is important, but your mental health's important too. And I don't want to make this about, you know, mental health and all that. I want to make this more about, like, it's more about just being able to take care of yourself and all that. And it is mental health, but it's also mental care, or just self-care. You know, it doesn't have to do just where you go into a therapist or any of that. You know, treat yourself, bro. Go out and get yourself some ice cream. Go out and hop on a bike, or just, you know, go out and for a walk. You know, anything that just makes you feel at peace. You know. And that's something that I had to learn. I'm like, you know, I don't really want to be living you know, maybe not paycheck to paycheck. I want to say the right term is, like, I'm living just day by day and not really enjoying what I'm doing. So once I quit that job, I'm like, you know, I got to really make sure that I'm enjoying my life, you know, because I can't really just keep doing what society expects me to do, you know. So during, you know, after I quit, I took a huge hit financially, of course, but there was always some sort of backup. And I went back to one of my old jobs, and I'm honestly enjoying whatever I'm doing there. It's fun. I get to talk to new people, and that's so during something that kind of, I'm like, you know what, I think I'm ready to come back to social media, is when I was talking to this random customer, and she had told me, she's like, she does stand-up comedy. I'm like, okay, great, that's amazing. And how's that going? She's like, it's tough, but, you know, I do it on the side. I have what was her job? I think it was like no, damn, I forgot what she told me her job was. But I'm like, oh, and how is it? She's like, oh, I don't like it. I'm like, oh, really? She's like, yeah. I'm like, why? She's like, yeah, I don't know, it's just not my thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. You know, I graduated from college, and, you know, I think she said telemarketing or some other shit. But I'm like, yeah, I graduated from college, and I got a job in my field, but I wasn't enjoying it. And she was like, oh, what happened? I'm like, I quit. She's like, you know what? Yeah, I feel like that's what we do now. Because she had also just graduated. She was like 23, 24, something like that. And she's like, yeah, you know, have a job that pays the bills, but also do what you're doing. And when I heard that, I was like, you know what? She's right. She's right. Because I'm at a place where I'm happy, but at the same time, I'm making, of course, I was making less money, but I was also happy, where I was. And I'm also doing music on the side, and doing this podcast and all that. So it was it was an eye-opening conversation that I had with her, and that was pretty cool. So yeah, just taking care of yourself, you know, it can go a long way. I feel like, yeah, like I said before, people are just so caught up in living their life with just by making money to pay the rent and all that. If anyone's listening to this, you guys should really just honestly just take care of yourself by, you know, book a trip, if you can, of course. If you can't, like, do something that makes you feel better, you know, like. But like I said, I booked a trip to Tampa, and it wasn't really self-care, but it ended up turning into something like that. Like, I'm like, you know what, Tampa is gonna be a stress-free time, even though it wasn't. Shout out American Airlines. A stress-free time, but but I knew it was gonna be good for me because you need time away from everything that can get in your head, you know. And although I do love my parents, that those 2 3 days away were kind of taught me how to live by myself and how to just just enjoy time without relying on them. And that was pretty cool, you know. So yeah, and again, a lot of it just goes back to money, because I know people that won't buy things or won't eat something because like, oh, it's too expensive, or I'm like, dude, if you're, and I say, and it's not dude, I'm not talking about to no one, but just saying, like, if you're hungry, go out and go buy yourself something, don't spend so much that to the point that you're broke, but treat yourself here and there. Get yourself an ice cream if you want to get an ice cream, a coffee. Heck, look, I broke. So when I was in Tampa, some flight problems happened, but I was on a, I want to say 2 years and 2 months. It was been 2 years and 2 months since I last had a cup of coffee, just any coffee in my system, and I ended up breaking that streak because I had to stay up, and I'm like, you know what, like I'm very tired, and I don't know how I'm gonna like stay up for my flight. So I managed to, I ended up buying a coffee, and with that coffee, it was like, luckily I didn't go back to the coffee addiction I had, but it definitely kind of woke me up, and I'm like, you know what, this was a nice little treat to myself. I shouldn't have done it personally, just my personal goals, but um it felt good. I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to take this coffee, and I'm ready to just drink and just get this energy back. Now, drinking the coffee was a different experience because I haven't had any of that in my system, so I was jittery and anxiety kind of went up. But hey, man, like I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the coffee. I didn't finish it though because my body just wouldn't take it. But little things where you treat yourself, and it's very important that everyone takes care of themselves. If you need to take a day off work to really just lay down and watch TV and just chill, by all means do it, because if you down the line gonna end up getting like you hurt yourself, because you need time off for yourself, but you don't give it to yourself, and your body is asking for it, or just your brain, your like you personally just asking for time off. And if you don't give it to yourself, you're gonna end up spiraling, going down a dark hole, and it's not something you want because it does not feel good. If you don't have people to back you up and to hold it down, it's gonna be even worse. I was very lucky to have friends that I could talk to about some of these issues. I had my family, couple, yeah, well, family isn't like my mom and dad and my brother. Even though I didn't speak to them as much, I did talk to my cousins a little more, and they kind of helped guide me, in the somewhat of a right direction. But there's people that don't have anybody, so I was very fortunate, and these people really helped me out to get out of the slump that I was at, and just bounce back up. And that's kind of where I want to leave the podcast at. I just had to kind of come out and just say, like, how important it is to just how, like, treat yourself here and there, and how important it is to really take care of yourself, because if you don't, that you will burn out one way or another. And it could be either at work, it could be in whatever situation that you might be in life, or if there's some drama going on, if you're so involved in that, you are slowly just, I believe personally that you are just like slowly killing yourself, and it's not going to be good. It's not great. And it's something that generations before me probably do not understand. Heck, my parents are tight that I quit my career job. They're tight, but I'm like, you know what? I understand that you're mad, but I'm happy where I'm at right now. Maybe I'm a little too comfortable. Maybe I am too comfortable, but I'm happy where I'm at right now, and I'm not really suffering. Not that I was suffering, but I was just not right in the other job. So again, if you can do it, because there's times where you really need the money. But again, if you're suffering, let's say you need the money, you gotta grind so you can make that money, and then you can just Take time off for yourself. That's why they have vacation pay. Take a week off. Take a day off. Take during a lunch break can honestly be just as relieving, or it's just time away from things. I left New York for Tampa, and I'm back in New York, and it felt great to be back. It was 3 days. It was like, okay, I'm away from the city, because I personally think I'm a city guy. So I'm away from the city, and I come back, and I'm like, it feels so good to be back, and that's just how it should be. I took a break from the city, and I came back, better and kind of happy to be here, and took a break from Instagram, and I'm back on Instagram, and I'm like, you know what? Now we're back. Now we're good. I took a break from friends for the entire month, and when I came back, I just felt like everything was refreshed. So take that break, because it could be what you need to stop feeling down, or just to help you feel better overall. You don't necessarily have to be depressed or down or any of that. Sometimes you just need time for yourself, whether it's like a day or two or an hour or two, and just you come right back and you feel refreshed. It's like showering after a day and after a whole exercise, after a whole workout, or like I have a cousin who works out, I think, most days, and I don't know how he feels on his days off, but I'm sure it feels good, because that's like your day off, and when you come back, you're ready to go, because you already had that time to take a break. So I'll leave y'all with this: take a break when you need to take a break, treat yourself when you need to treat yourself, and if you can, treat yourself. And just, from me, don't live life too fast, because when you live fast and you crash, sometimes it's one crash, sometimes it's multiple crashes, but when you crash, it doesn't feel good. And it is when you crash that you have to take time off to bring yourself back and to repair the damages. So that's where I'll leave it at today. Take care of yourself, and I will see you guys next week. Peace.